Everyone. Welcome to the Communication Styles Workshop presented by the Leadership Center. Today we're going to talk about four different communication styles, how they can benefit you, as well as give you guys take-home resources and quizzes that can better help you understand it at home. And if you want to dive a little deeper, you can do that as well. So before we begin, I'm going to show you a little bit about the Leadership Center. So the Leadership Center is actually a physical space here on campus. It is in the second floor of the Student Center. It is right up the stairs. It's very easy to find. In here, you can have study time. It's a very quiet area. It's open to students. There's also a library within our center that you can borrow books from. You have to do that online due to safety precautions, but it's open to all students. You can also reserve rooms for different workshops and meetings if you so desire. And we also present multiple different workshops as well as programs. Here in our center, we have a program called Kent Talks that takes hot topics and we discuss it and discuss individual experiences and stories about that in a very welcoming environment. And we also promote different things on campus. We used to have a course, and then we also have a leadership institute, and we also host the leadership awards. So we have within the Leadership Center, we have a leadership model, which encompasses three different umbrella terms of leadership. So we have interpersonal leadership, interpersonal leadership, and community. This model guides all of our programming here in the Leadership Center. In today's workshop, we'll touch on both the interpersonal and the interpersonal aspect. We're going to talk about self-awareness about knowing your communication style, and we're going to talk about how the communication style and other people's communication styles can influence group dynamics. So today, I am your presenter. My name is Andrea Specht. I'm a senior deaf education major here at University, and I am a second-year student leadership consultant for the Leadership Center. So what we're going to review today in our communication styles workshop is we're going to do what are the communication styles. So we'll see an overview. I have a chart that I can show you as well as the characteristics, and then the four main communication styles, which are director, influencer, harmonizer, analyzer, and negative perception, as well as the benefits for not only yourself but for others, as well as those additional resources that I mentioned. So before we get into the actual information, I have an activity for you all. So if you could log into polev.com/aspect-013, and there will be questions for you guys to answer. And then I will share it on my screen as well so you can see. So the first question that we have is, how would you best describe how you approach new relationships? By utilizing an open book policy, starting out reserved before opening up, neither of the options, or a combination of both the options? My phone. Trying to figure out technology here. I don't think you guys can see it. I'm not sure what's happening with technology today. It has not been my friend throughout the entire day. So if you guys could put in the chat what your response is. So I have multiple people said a combination of both. Someone said it depends on the situation. I have someone say starting out reserved, I see. So I think we have like a good mix. That is a good answer to explain. Someone says definitely an open book policy. There's people out there that definitely use an open book. And there's nothing wrong with that. I personally am more reserved at first, but then as soon as you get to know me, I am a complete open book and can talk about anything. All right, so I'm gonna go on to our next question. I think everyone's answered. Okay, so this question is, what types of environments do you thrive in? Fast-paced and challenging, slow and within comfort zone, neither option, or a combination of both. Someone said fast-paced and challenging. Another one said a combination of both. If it's something you're comfortable doing, then it's more fast-paced. Maybe if it's like something you're not comfortable with, then it's probably like a slower pace and within comfort zone. Well, awesome. Right, I'm going to activate our next question for you guys. So this question is, how do you recharge your social energy? So this kind of relates to like extroversion versus introversion. So do you do it by hanging out with people, by being alone, neither option, or combinations of both? Someone said by being alone, for sure. Awesome. Someone else said being alone, very, very introverted. I'm very combination of both depending. Hanging out with people with good energy, that's always awesome. You have that like good group. Hanging out with people occasionally, sometimes it's kind of like a combination of both. Awesome, those are good answers. So we have a good mix today. That's awesome. All right, so I'm gonna do our last question. And this question asks, what do you find more value in? Facts and figures, viewpoints and emotions, neither option, or a combination of both? Combination of both. Facts and figures most time, but overall like a combo. Okay. You rather stick to like something that's straight and true rather than kind of like what you're feeling at the moment. I think I'm more of like a combination, but I think I gravitate more to like emotions when it comes to that. That's awesome. I'm so happy that we have a combination of people here today. This is going to be very exciting. So I'm going to pop back over to our presentation and we shall get started. So thank you all for answering. That gives me definitely an insight who's with us here today. And I think that's a very good group for us to kind of explore who each of us are and be able to maybe figure out what our communication style is. So let's get started. What are communication styles? So communication styles in which people communicate. Typically, individuals' personalities, they kind of like connect with people's way of communication. Some people might be a little more on the shy side, so they might not be a strong communicator, or they're just very extroverted, outgoing, so they might be more open about who they are in terms of how they communicate. The point of communication is to share and relay information. So that's why people are communicating, whether it be a casual conversation, just letting someone know how you are, or if you're in a office situation and you're trying to talk like board meeting information, nitty gritty stuff, but still the point of communication is to share and relay information. There are four main styles of communication. You have director, influencer, harmonizer, and analyzer, which we'll get in depth for both of them, for all four of them. And then as our poll has showed, individuals tend to have a preferred style of communication. but you can code switch into different styles based off of the different situations that you're in and with the different people that you communicate with. So you may have a preference for maybe, even if we haven't discussed it, but you may have a preference for a more director way of communicating. But in other situations, you may focus more on like an analyzer position. So it is possible to go between all four of them. This is not something where it's like you are only this communicator and 100% of the time. This is more of like a fluid, so you will be able to like transfer into like other communications depending on the situation, as well as the people you're with and maybe the intent of your communication. So here's a little chart to better explain all four of the communication styles. So director and influencer are more on the fast-paced environment, whereas analyzer and harmonizer are in a slower-paced environment. Director and analyzer are more task-oriented, while influencer and harmonizer are more people-oriented. So if you notice in our poll everywhere, I use different questions and different answers in order to differentiate all four of those communication styles. So I want you to start thinking while I go through these, how you personally would place yourself as we go through maybe a director, an influencer, analyzer, harmonizer, and see what you gravitate towards and what your secondary or tertiary communication would be depending on the situation. So before I get in depth with them, we're going to just do basic characteristics, positive characteristics of each communication style. So a director, someone who communicates using the director style, tends to be more confident, decisive, efficient, and determined. An influencer tends to be very enthusiastic, very visionary, engaging, and very friendly. Others tend to be loyal, supportive, agreeable, and dependable. And the analyzer is more focused, realistic, independent, and logical. So what are the four main communication styles more in depth? Well, the director, so someone who communicates using this specific style, tends to be more fast, task-focused, and energized. Directors tend to focus on more of the big picture. They focus on goals, and they are always up for a good challenge. They're the kind of people that you would want to give a hard task to that you've kind of been struggling with, because they'll be able to break down those different facts and figures and be engaged in it and get it done. In terms of relationships, they tend to be more reserved in what they share, and they value direct information. So be very direct with them. You don't want to be more like conversational based. Individuals who tend to express using more assertive phrasing, so people that communicate direct, and the director form of communication come off more assertive with what they're talking about, what they're asking. Common job positions that you may see someone who uses director form of communication may include CEOs, management, and attorneys. That's not saying that everyone in those positions use the director form of communication in those styles. They might prefer one of the other styles, but most of the time you'll see directors in like CEO and management positions. Before I move on, have you ever, I'm asking an answer in the chat if you could, can you think of someone that you've met that has communicated using the director form of communication, just knowing what we've talked about so far? Someone said a few bosses that they've had believe that use the director form. Someone said their dad uses the director form of communication. That's really funny. The studio owner for the dance studio I work at. So yeah, that's a good. So that's kind of like a boss position or an owner. Or maybe they can be a president and have this communication style. A lot of people tend to use a director communication style. I tend to code switch into director every now and then, but it's not my preferred method of communication. Someone just said their significant other uses their director from communication. Now the influencer. So someone who uses an influencer style tends to be very people oriented and values fast-paced environments. They tend to gravitate towards more casual conversations to exchange information, kind of like small talk, chatting you up, that kind of information sharing. They typically are known as the people person. They highly value open relationships. So opposite of the director, they're very open with different people and high energy environments, and they're always up to try new things. Common career roles for this specific communication style is like they tend to be collaborators, team collaborators, sales reps, and motivational speakers. I know I've met a couple car salesmen who definitely have more of an influencer way of communication. Someone posed the same question: where have you seen an influencer communication style being used? Someone said their sorority president definitely uses this style. I can see that being a part of a sorority. Someone just seconded that comment. So we have two sorority presidents that definitely use this style. And a lot of motivational speakers and people who present do this. Friends do this a lot, you think? I think this can be very good in different situations for sure, but it can be a little like overbearing at times. I don't think I personally code switch into influencer too much. Maybe sometimes depending on my situation, but it's not my preferred. Next, we have the harmonizer. This is my preferred mode of communication. So individuals who use the harmonizer style to communicate tend to be more people-oriented and more study environments rather than super fast-paced. They tend to create warm and welcoming environments in order to build those relationships. Building relationships is very important to harmonizers. Their main mode of communication is actually through active listening rather than speaking, while having a preference towards like indirect information, so more casual conversation based, and they do not like conflict. Common professions include customer service, teaching, and support specialists. So therapists can also tend to use this. They use a lot of active listening. I am studying to be a teacher, so that makes sense for me to have more of a harmonizer way of communication. Where have you guys seen a harmonizer? Someone says their professor fits perfectly with this description. Someone you work with in the office, other teachers that you've met. Someone says they think they might switch to this at times. Yeah, depending on the situation. A lot of different friends who are harmonizers. I think a lot of people tend to code switch into harmonizer even if it's not their preferred. I have not met many people who enjoy conflict, and most people I think do enjoy relationships. So I think it's pretty common to be able to switch into harmonizer. All right, and now on to our last communication style, and that's the analyzer. The analyzer is pretty straightforward with its name. Individuals who use this style tend to be more focused at the task on hand, and they take their time. They're those facts and figures type of people. They prefer direct means of communication and information. They're very fact-oriented or more introverted personalities and enjoy working more alone or in smaller groups rather than in a big crowd. So people who typically have this communication style can be found in engineering positions, data collection, or analytical roles. Accounting is probably a good example of one specific profession where you can find an analyzer. Do any of you have any experience with anyone who is an analyzer, or are you an analyzer yourself, do you think? Two people said that they code switch into this one. Very fact oriented. Someone said their friend is a science major, so this makes so much sense. Yeah, a lot of people who tend to be more science majors tend to have more of the analyzer because they can look at those specific facts and be able to figure out what it is. Awesome. So now that we kind of go through all four of the different types of communication styles, I do want to point out some possible negative perceptions of them. So some negative perceptions, and this is not true, it's just how this one communication style can come off. And this is so that you can become aware of how someone may perceive you or how you may be able to shift your own way of communication in order to better the information that you're trying to share. So for a director, they may be seen as harsh or impersonal, controlling, and unapproachable. An influencer may be seen as unrealistic, overbearing, unreliable, and hasty. A harmonizer may seem over emotional, quiet or shy, indecisive, and needy. And then the analyzer may be seen as unemotional, critical, blunt, and lethargic. For the director, they can be perceived as such because of how passionate they are and how they're able to focus at the task and be able to get it done and be able to make those tough decisions that some people may not be able to make. An influencer sees the big picture and is just excited about everything, so they may be seen as unrealistic in their terms and jumping into conclusions way too fast rather than thinking about it. A harmonizer, again, they do not like conflict and they're more of an active listener, so they can be seen as very passive and not engaged. And that person that's very close, fact focused and likes to spend time figuring out the problem on their own. So they can be seen as like unemotional, and they tend to be very critical of themselves to the point of like perfectionism. So people might say that they're a little too blunt with themselves or with others. And again, that's just to make awareness of how one communication style can be perceived in order to understand how others communicate and how to better understand how you communicate and how that can be perceived depending on your situation. As I kind of explained a little bit, so what are the benefits to knowing your style? So for yourself, it allows you to better understand what you yourself prioritize in terms of your communication. So for the influencer and the harmonizer, they tend to value more relationship and people oriented, while the director and the analyzer tend to prioritize more of the facts and the nitty gritty. It provides an insight to how your communication may or may not come across to others. So that can both be positive perceptions as well as those negative perceptions that we just. It allows individuals of how they communicate and how to adjust to different situations. So that ability to code switch depending on who you're with, what type of situation you're in, and what your goal of the communication is. And it opens up different communication paths to shift into while engaging in different situations to better receive information. So not only does it help you be able to express yourself through your communication style, but also receive information from other people. There's benefits for others of knowing communication styles. So for others, it provides us a foundation to better understand how others communicate in the way they do. So maybe you have those negative perceptions of someone who communicates in a different style than you. You'll be able to better understand them so that you're able to take their information and be able to understand where they're coming from and how they communicate. It allows for an open channel to build and maintain relationships. Even if your communication style or the individual that you're working with communication style is not relationship or oriented based, it still allows for that foundation to build those relationships as well as maintain those relationships continuing on. It opens up access to influence and support others, and it heightens your awareness on how to shift your personal communication style to benefit those communicating using different means. They prefer more of the analyzer position, but you're talking to someone who uses more of an influencer position, you may be able to slightly code switch so you're better to understand how they're more people oriented and relationship oriented versus you yourself maybe more task oriented and maybe more focused. So it allows for that building of a relationship as well as opening those communication lines. Before I continue with giving you guys additional resources, I discussed the different main communication styles. We went over the poll everywhere to try and gauge where people are. So if you could type in the chat which you think you are based off of this workshop, and we can share a little bit. Someone said that they're an analyzer, very fact-based, very introverted, get down to the nitty-gritty. Someone says they think they're probably the director most of the time, but sometimes they'll do harmonizer. Then they switch a lot because of the different roles. Yeah, if you have like multiple different roles, you have to be able to like code switch depending on your situation. Sometimes an influencer depending on the role. Awesome. Analyzer for sure. Oh, so we have 2 analyzers in the room. Ask a lot of questions. Yeah, trying to get down to like what are the fine details? What do I need to know? What is the direct way of communication? That's awesome. So we have a lot of analyzers in this room. We have a harmonizer, influencer. I think we have like all of them. Sometimes director as well. I personally place myself more in the harmonizer role, but every now and then I kind of like code switch into more of like an influencer or a director kind of position. I don't think I code switch into analyzer very often. I think that's my least preferred method of communication. Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. So I do have some take-home quizzes and additional resources for you. So these are active links, so I can show you guys. So there is 2 links to free online quizzes. So the first one is Communication Styles 2.0. It's a little bit, It's a little bit different than what we've discussed, but it still kind of has a general idea of communication styles. So this is a quick, free, less than 5-minute test if you're interested to kind of like get you more information. The chart on the left, if you can see, shows how many communications they have within this quiz. So they definitely have more than we do, but there is a main of 4. The other link is from Leadership IQ. And this is more oriented towards our leadership model of communication styles that we provided today in our workshop. They may be under different names. Names tend to be like switched depending on what resources you looked at. So here is a quick little assessment. It's kind of like what we did today in our Flow Everywhere, and it'll take you less than 5 minutes. It's 13 questions, and it'll give you one of 4 communication styles. So they have theirs listed as analytical, intuitive, functional, and personal. So very similar to what we've talked about today. And then there are 4 website resources. So the first one is 4 communication styles and how to navigate them in the workplace. So again, that's very similar to what we've talked about. And then how to communicate with someone who may not be within your communication style. There's another one on how to identify communication styles and 3 ways of understanding communication styles can benefit you. That one's a LinkedIn. I'll show you guys all 3 of these so that you can see where they come from. So this is that first website of four communication styles and how to navigate them in the workplace. So here is their little infographic. So their names are a little bit different, but it's still the general idea. This one, I believe, so this is communicationstyles.org. Again, they have a very similar way of setting up the 4 main. So I'll give you little guidelines for that. This one's their infographic, so each one I believe has an infographic. And this one is from LinkedIn, so it's very easy to find, and these are 3 benefits to understanding your communication style. So before I finish this workshop, I appreciate you guys coming in. Maybe I hope that you've learned a little bit more about communication styles, maybe made yourself more aware of how to communicate and what your goals are, and maybe made yourself aware of other people's methods of communication. On Saturday, February 20th, we're actually hosting our annually Student Leadership Institute. Our registration is open. You can register at kent.edu/bsi/leadership. We have an amazing keynote speaker coming that we're super excited about. It is Ken, the Free Hugs guy. So we're super excited to hear him speak. He's an amazing human being, and we're so excited for him to come to Kent State. So sign up for that. It is Saturday, February 20th. 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and it is on Zoom. We also have other upcoming events. So on the 23rd at 5 o'clock, we have another leadership workshop, and that's a leadership inventory. We're going to discuss about the Enneagram and how you can use it to better understand yourself. And we have lessons in leadership on the 25th at 12 o'clock, and that is on Instagram Live. And it's with Katie Matisse. So Kent State's own Katie will be there, and we'll be interviewing her about her leadership experiences. This is a little QR code. This is a little survey for us to get information from you guys. So it's a little survey. Feel free to take it. Take your phone out and kind of scan the QR code and take our little survey. And let us know how we did, what you'd like to see, and we're so happy you guys came here to our leadership workshop today.